Hello, friends. Joe Lynch here from the Logistics of Logistics. I am day 2 at Manifest, and I'm talking to my friend Steve Harkins from Iron Mountain. Steve, please introduce yourself and your company and where you're normally hailing from.
Joe, a real pleasure to be with you. Thanks so much. So my name's Steve Harkins. I'm the Global Vice President of Warehousing and Logistics for Iron Mountain. I'll tell you that I've been with the organization for an exciting 6-month journey so far. Prior to Iron Mountain, I was with DB Schenker, Global Contract Logistics Provider. Spent a number of years before that with a mid-cap industrials company called Crane Next, and I started my career many moons ago with Nestle, the world's largest food company. So it's great to be with you, Joe.
Nice. So what attracted you to Iron Mountain?
Yeah, I have to say, and at the risk of kind of assuming your audience, but like many others, I knew Iron Mountain as a records and information management company. But as I went through the process of learning about the organization and understanding the opportunity to join, what attracted me was that they're much more than records and information management. There's a strategy that's been in place for around 5 years that's really driving a very meaningful transformation for the business, that's designed to create exponential growth for the organization and diversify the revenue streams as well. So if I look at what Iron Mountain actually is versus the perception I had before joining, we're not just records and information management, but we're in the data center space. So we have 26 data centers serving the cloud. We're the number 4 provider in that realm. We've grown our business substantially in ALM, which is Asset Lifecycle Management, which is really the circular economy and full lifecycle management of assets, everything from deployment to maintenance to return and end of life and decommissioning, and doing so in a very sustainable and secure manner. And then of course the part that's near and dear to my heart, Joe, is warehouse and logistics. As the company diversifies and grows, we have a very meaningful presence with over 10 million square feet of operations around the globe, and probably one of the best kept secrets in the industry in terms of the services that we provide. So all of those things combined together, along with the fact that this is a business that has a 70-year legacy of trust and highly valued customers, serving the top 95% of the Fortune 1000 and 250,000 customers around the globe. Why on earth wouldn't I join?
Yeah, it's a trusted name, a name normally not associated with warehousing and fulfillment, but bar is much higher in certain aspects of Iron Mountain. So not that you're ever going to be, it's not a lesser business, but the nature of what you've done with document management. I told you before, I have a friend who owned a document management company that he sold to Iron Mountain, and I remember him saying of his company, they're buying us because we're the very best. He goes, and I remember him walking me through what they stored, and we're used to people talking about, e-commerce, the sweater, but when you're talking the stuff that Iron Mountain is traditionally stored, it is it's the critical parts of the business that you're storing.
And those are the key principles that we're attributing and bringing over to the warehouse and logistics piece, right? The idea of trust and security is a hallmark of everything we do, and it's the legacy where our reputation is built. So we're expanding that, we're supporting that, we're continuing to build in the market.
Which brings us to why you're at Manifest. Yeah. I mean, there's one more reason they come to Manifest, because you get to talk to everybody and say, nope, not just document management, we're a leading warehousing and fulfillment company. What have you loved about Manifest so far? I know we're day 2, so you've seen some things.
Yeah, well, and there's certainly more to see, but when you think that there's 6,000 attendees that are here, over 1,500 shippers representing 50 countries from around the globe, the opportunity to have not just a large number of conversations, but some very high quality conversations, and hearing the themes that you see, the burgeoning AI that's pervasive in the marketplace, seeing a good sampling of innovation as well with robotics. The diversity of the audience here and the diversity of the vendor base is absolutely fantastic. But I got to tell you, the most powerful piece to me is hearing the thought leadership that comes through the educational sessions at the show. And in candor, there's one that stood out to me so far. Jens Larsen did a session early on in day one that was titled "The Coming Chaos in Supply Chain." And his opening comment actually said it should be retitled to "The Continuing Chaos in Supply Chain." And there's a lot of power in that statement, because if you think of what's happened to the industry, these very common themes keep reoccurring. We go back to COVID, it's not far long ago when you have to think of the disruption that caused, originally viewed as a black swan event, but then right on the heels of that, it's the Red Sea crisis. Right on the heels of that, you've got the geopolitical instability, where our world is becoming a very unstable place to operate in. And then day by day, the pressures of tariff implications, whether it be, on China, 25% on Mexico, on Canada, changes in Mexico through the IMEX program, changes to the de minimis. All of these things are very common themes that mean there's meaningful conversations about the short-term mitigation strategies and the long-term implications for warehouse and logistics.
And it's funny, we found out during COVID that we had some parts of our supply chain that was brittle. For the most part, we were resilient. For the most part, we survived. I joke about it. That's nothing to joke about, but it's a pandemic where people gained weight. Different than previous pandemics. And I guess I can't laugh about the tragedy that it was, but we did okay, but we all wanted more resilience, more agility, more of the good stuff and less of the brittle part.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the thing, the themes of those conversations that I referenced almost take on the notion of buzzwords about agility, resilience, the desire for optionality in supply chains, the desire to be able to deal with disruption. But the reality is that those are very real and common constraints that are largely unpredictable. The ambiguity that we've had to get used to in the industry is absolutely huge.
Yeah, and you live in Toronto, I live in Michigan and Detroit area, and we talked last week about this, is that border between Windsor and Detroit.
Yep.
I think it's the busiest border crossing in the world, and it's the lifeblood of automotive. And then if you go down to Laredo, El Paso, those are also the lifeblood of the automotive industry that I'm from. And now we have a new administration. I doubt long term we're going to have problems with those tariffs, but it's the not knowing part that you go, is this like a negotiating thing? We all have to act like it's real. That's the challenge with all this.
We do, because that stuff can become very real. The 10% on China is actually happening today and now. While there's a window of a reprieve, yeah, that one's not going away. And I think your crystal ball is spot on there for sure. But that optionality that's needed in the industry, the contingency, the ability to adapt, in addition to plan long term, is really a very common theme that's all over the show floor today.
So you guys are planned. We talked about it last week. You guys are positioning yourselves to be the go-to solution in that screwed up market. And again, it's not over. Whether it's the Red Sea, Suez Canal, Panama, tariffs, God knows what else could go wrong. You guys are positioned to be that partner. Why is that?
We are. No, and appreciate the question. Yeah, there's a number of factors, right? So the core piece that I think is most compelling for folks to understand is that Iron Mountain has a mature network of operations that have been designed to serve on-demand warehousing. Agile warehouse as a service, where we've got capacity in key markets that create the contingency and the ability to deal with that ambiguity, to create that optionality that so many shippers are looking for. Even with this brief window of tariff relief that we have right now, it's a perfect example of how we could be serving shippers today. If there's a front-loading strategy that still has a chance to make sense, where goods could be shipped into our facility in eastern Pennsylvania, Lehigh Valley, Jersey, Inland Empire, California, we've got the capacity that's ready to be taken advantage of, so you can protect a certain portion of your goods from the pricing impact that's inevitably going to have on consumers. Further than that, there's a number of ways to access this network. So shippers can come direct, and we're certainly happy to drive forward in that path. But Iron Mountain's actually been around for a number of years, very carefully working with a lot of the platform providers that are in the industry as well. So we've got relationships with the likes of Flexi, Flow Space, Fulfillment Crowd, these partners where their platforms are operating within our businesses. So if you're kind of a mid-tier e-commerce provider engaging in those scalable solutions, Iron Mountain is actually the backbone that serves the operational need for a number of those things.
Yeah, it's interesting. As we're sitting here, I'm looking at what it says on your wall here.
There you go.
E-commerce, fulfillment, contract logistics, and then agile on-demand secure warehousing. And also, I can't help it, I'm looking over your shoulder. You guys work with 90% of the Fortune 1000 companies. And I feel very strongly right now that cybersecurity is important. We've seen top companies get in trouble with cybersecurity. I don't think anybody's completely safe, but I want a company that can scale with me, that can partner with me and says, yeah, we're safe. And by the way, as safe as you can be. We're seeing companies like Microsoft, the airlines, that was not a cybersecurity, but it was a vulnerability. We saw AT&T have cybersecurity issues.
And it's a meaningful trend that's got to be addressed in the industry. There's no question, right? There's been some vulnerabilities that have been seen historically. And again, just to go back to that legacy brand that Iron Mountain is, that legacy is built on that trust of protecting the assets of those Fortune 1000 organizations that you mentioned, the 250,000 customers that we serve. It's been based on being able to protect both physical and digital assets for over 70 years. But you also mentioned the banner up here, the board with the services we described. Aside from on-demand warehousing, whether you come in direct or you go through a channel partner, you mentioned contract logistics. So this is a bit of a new news for Iron Mountain as a product announcement launch here on the trade show floor. While we've actually been in contract logistics, it's probably too well known of a secret. So we formally announced that our business is going into the contract logistics realm, and we're not going in brand new. We've got a deeply experienced group of leaders that have come to us from the industry, almost carefully curated. We recently won a very large piece of business over in our UK operations with a global food and beverage company. So we're a player, we're there, but as the increasingly sophisticated product solutions are needed for dedicated contract logistics or within a shared site environment, we have that capability to do that and deliver.
So let's wrap this bad boy up so we can go wander around and see other people and manifest other than me. And so I know it's a big company. In a nutshell, what is Iron Mountain providing? And then who are they providing it for? Who's your ideal customers?
The ideal customers fit perfectly into that paradigm I've just described. Whatever the use case or the need is, we're obviously targeting the shippers that are out there in a direct manner. Whether they come to us through our direct business and our team, whether they come to us through channel partners, the platform organizations that are out there. We also serve 3PLs directly. We've got many relationships where we've been able to be a network augmenter to other 3PLs, whether we operated on their behalf as a 4PL, whether we give them a service and access agreement that's under the stewardship, functions similar to a sublease. Those options are available. And then, of course, the larger brands, primarily in fast-moving consumer goods, CPG, the food industry, retail, omni-channel, e-commerce, and then ultimately moving into automotive, preferably in a parts distribution center network or industrial verticals. That's where we want to go. And if I could just close you with the thoughts of why I actually think Iron Mountain in the warehousing and logistics is differentiated in the marketplace, there's three key pieces that are important. The first is our commercial aggressiveness. So where I come from historically in the industry is largely a lengthy contracting process, a slow process, an onerous process, overly conservative, potentially overly bureaucratic. When Iron Mountain says agility, we mean agility, and we mean it on the commercial aggressiveness front as well. The other piece is that we're investment driven. So we know that our long-term success is defined just as that. It's long-term success So we're planning where we invest next in terms of creating capacity that will exist where the industry intends to be. So we're looking at Latin America, we're even looking at the Middle East, looking at Saudi Arabia, additional nodes in the United States market as well. And then finally, I'll leave you with the thought that that other differentiator is that 70-year legacy of trust that Iron Mountain has built.
I was just going to say, there's one thing that struck me when you say you're commercially aggressive. You hear that from the startups here, not from the companies that say we work with 90% of the Fortune 1000, not from global companies, and not from companies that the nature of their business means you have to be very careful. You guys are in a business, the data centers, the document management. It is not information management. You don't fly willy-nilly in those businesses. And to be able, and again, I think it's what's required. I do feel like we didn't touch too much on it, but e-commerce websites are not for one country. When you see something on a website, you don't go, is this a Canadian company? I wonder if I can work with that. Increasingly, e-commerce companies are having to provide global services or lose out. And I feel like you either compete globally or you wait to get bought or wait to go out of business. And most warehousing companies aren't global.
And there's where we're fortunate, right? We have that agility of a mindset of commercial aggressiveness that's supported by that 70-year legacy, $5 billion global enterprise that brings all of the attributes of safety, security, and trust with an agile platform that's ready to drive into the future.
I love it. I love it. Steve Harkins, thank you so much for taking the time.
Great, Joe. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Enjoy Manifest.
You too.